if you got values in meters and want to change that into inches, no problem, we get our meter converter. So select meters, convert to inches, pass in a number, hit convert, done. So let's learn how to create the same. I've opened up my IDE in here, and in this video we're going to learn how to create that length converter. So let's hit create a new Python file, be it Python, and let's name it something like length con. And in here let's import what we usually do. So from Tkinter let's import everything. And now we don't need anything else, just let's straight ahead to our application creation, and then now we need to title it. So I have the title, let's pass in something like length converter, and converter. Then we need to create a drop down menu to select the from value and the to value. So let's define the scales we're going to use in this application. So the scales or the values we're going to work with will be in a list. So meters, then we'll work with inches, and lastly we have foot. Now let's create another variable which will store the from value which we are going to convert. So the value we will get from the user in entry widget, and what is that is a meter, inch or foot. So we're going to select that using a drop down menu. So let's create a from variable, and that be a string value, string var, and then let's create an option menu. So that be our from menu, option menu inside our application, and the variable is underscore from, and from is a keyword, that's why we just prefixed it with a underscore so it does not cause any error. So if you remove that, it'll be a from keyword, so make sure to have the underscore. Then come to the choices, that is our scales. Now let's place it inside of our application. So from menu dot grade, so obviously it's the first row and the first column as well, So now let's move on to creating the to, that is we are going to create this from to this. So let's store also that using a option menu. So to menu, so that's a option menu inside our application. The variable is to underscore, and then the values or the options are scales, and then the same from so let's define a label in between these. So we are going to say something like this, option menu to convert to this to menu. So let's add that will be a label for now. The label class is our application. The text to display will be a space convert to space, then just pack it inside of our application. It is great, and that be the row or the column after this row. So that is the row 0, that's row man, then the column as 1, and in here it's going to come after this label. So our to menu dot grid, so row is 1 and the column is 2nd. So that's index s2, but it's the 3rd element. So moving on ahead, let's define the function to convert these values. Or let's say first of all we need to define the converter, and let's use the naming convention like this. So let's just pass in the whole name, converter, and then first of all we need the values, that a value which will be getting from our user. So let's create a label first. So in here we have a label, so let's say the enter label. So that is label class app text to display will be, let's say, enter your number, or that be length, and then let's leave a space. Let's use the grid to place it, and it will be on the 2nd row. So row 2nd, index s1, and the column, and that be the first. Then comes our entry widget, so, or let's just name it number entry. So entry inside our application, nothing more, to initialize numi.grid, and it be just beside our enter label, so that be row as second, but the column will be second as well. So now let's come to our converter, and in here we're going to get from what to convert and then what's the value itself. So let's define a from. So let's get that from the from variable, from the get, that's a string var, which will store the option chosen in this from menu, and then a to variable which will store to.get, that is the option selected to convert in this option menu. So let's get the number itself. So the number will be numi.get, that's the user have inputted inside of this entry field, and then we can perform functions with these values. So now before moving ahead, we need to know what are the scales or the values of different units. So in the resources I have a length.text which has 1 meter equals this much inches, 1 meter equals this foot, and 1 foot equals this inches. So we can use these values to create our length converter. I will put this in the resources, check out there. So let's put this beside our Python file, and let's maximize our view. So double click on this and it will just snap out there, and then let's drag this a bit here. Perfect. So let's create if statements, that is if our from equals, oh that's 2 equals meters, then and our 2 also equals inches, then we're going to let's create a converted or converted number. So converted number will be our number that has that is in the entry field, and multiply that with 39.37 inches. So to convert 1 meter or this meter value inches into inches, we're going to multiply that with 39.37. Now let's create a elif statement. So elif our from is equals 2 meters again, but the 2 is foot. Now we're gonna multiply that converted number. So let's copy that so we have a bit of less time writing the code. So copy that, and oh, I think I should just write the full line and then copy it. So the number will be multiplied with 3.28. So you can see that 1 meter equals 3.28 foot. So multiply that to change into foot, that's the meter to foot, 3.28. Then let's copy this now and let's paste it something like 4 more times. So 1 2, oh that's an indent, 2 3 4. So now let's change these values. So when the from is changed to something like inches and the 2 is changed to something like meters, the M capital will multiply. So no, we will divide the number, so divided by 39.37. So it's just the opposite, that is when we are changing meter to inches, we are multiplying 39.37. When we are changing inches to meters, we are gonna divide that. So that explains it. Then the same here, that is if the inches is the inches and then it is foot, then we're gonna change or divide that by 12. So you can see that 1 foot equals 12 inches. So 1 foot equals 12 inches, then 1 inches equals 1 by 12 foot. So let's set it divided by 12, and in here let's change this to now foot, that's gonna be foot, that meters, and in here now this will be that divided by 3.28 because 1 meter equals 3.28 meters. So 1 meter equals 3.28 foot. So 1 foot equals 1 by 3.28 meters. So okay, these calculations may sound a bit overwhelming to you, but bear with me because these are just simple calculations. So 28, and then now let's change this last condition to foot, and then the meters as inches. So when 1 foot equals inches, so just multiply it with 12. So we have defined our function blocks, that is to change a meter into inches, meter to foot, inches to meter, inches to foot, etc, etc. So now at the last, let's define an else block. That is, let's say if the user selects, if the user is dumb, that is selects meter and meter in both of the situations, then there is no need to convert the value, that the meter is in meter already. So even in that situation, we'll create the converted num is just as the num entered in the entry field. So no error happens and our function goes smoothly. Perfect. So let's create a label to display that value beside our entry field. So let's create a num label. So num label class. Set our application, the text display will be our converted num. But now the converted num can be a really large decimal point value, because you can see we have something like 0.37 value, 0.328, etc, etc. So it may be a really large decimal value. So let's run that using the round function. So round, and then let's pass in the value. So that is our num converted number, and then let's pass the 2 as a decimal place. So if there is no decimal place in any case, like let's say we have a number 2, converting that from foot to inches, it will just multiply that with 12. So we'll get no decimal places. Even in that situation, this code will be fine. That is, the round function will not round anything because there is no decimal places. So don't sweat on that. So num label dot grid, and as mentioned earlier, this will be just beside our entry widget, that is this entry field. So it's row 1, column 1. So let's place it beside that, row 1 and column 2. So is that, yeah, okay. So let's finally create a button to perform the conversion. So conversion button, and inside wrap text display will be convert, then the command to follow up will be converter, and then let's place it inside of our application. So it will be the very last widget. So we have the last row is 1, so it will be in the row 2. So row 2 column as 0. So it's the first element in that row, and then our function is pretty much complete. So let's close this text file now. Let's bring in our objects. So hit Alt 1, we'll bring back our project window, and then let's call in our app dot main loop. So let's run our function. So let's just review our code before running this. So in here we have our application created, title, scales. So we have meters, inches, foot, and yeah, make sure to select them and then just check them in here, that is in the if statement. So if you have meter or meters, make sure to have pass s in here also and in here also. So okay, moving on ahead, we have the from value. Okay, from option menu, scales, from menu, grid row, okay, column 1 2 3, then row 2, column 1 2, then the column 3, and then we use the converter from get to get, and the num get also, then the if statements, elif statements, the else statement, that if the meter and the from is the same thing, so we're not gonna do perform anything, and then we just create a label to print that on the screen, and then we have our convert button. Perfect. So let's run our program and see what we have created. So okay, you can see we have a bit of layout issues. So you can see that we need to add a column span to this entry field, and then we need to add for this enter your length label as well. So let's do that. We have enter label. So in here let's add in column span of 2, and let's increase the column of here to 2 as well, because we are adding column span to its previous element. So now column span for the entry widget as well, it will be 2 as well. And then when we are adding column span to this, so let's add the column value for this label also, that will be the converted value. So let's change this to 4, that is increased by 2, and we don't need to add any column value for this. So beside that, we may get error if the value is small or larger, so it may get overlap. That's why let's add in a width of 10 beforehand, so we don't get any errors like that. Then let's add a padding for every button or every widget, because a bit spacious is really good. So I'm gonna add pad y to every widget we have created so far. And lastly for the button, so we have added padding y 5 for each widget inside of our application. And now let's run our program, and you can see that we have a really good layout. Well, we will have no space for the converted value to appear, so let's add a bit of geometry in here. So let's call in our app.geometry, then let's pass in something, let's say 350 by 100, or let's just increase, let's just increase by 30 pixels. So now let's run our program, and we have what we wanted, a lot of space here and a bit space here to work with. So let's test our converter. So let's pass in meters to, let's say I want to change to inches. Let's pass in something like, let's say 27, I don't know, and then let's hit convert, and we get a error, that is can't multiply sequence by non-int of type float. Okay, I got it. So in here we need to change this entry field into a int, because we are working with mathematical operations. I always forget that, so change that into int class, my bad. Then let's run again. Okay, let's select meters to inches, and pass in 27 again, hit convert. Boom, we have 1062 inches, that is 27 meters equivalent to, so we can test it to foot, convert 88.56 foot. So let's say if someone just uses meters, 2 meters, that's really nothing to, but still we'll get no error, but we'll just get that value. That is, we have a else statement, that is if the meter, the conversion from and to are the same, then we're going to print the same value that's in the entry field. So use this length converter to convert any value you want. And well, it was just a practice of using GUI and mathematical operations in Python. So that's it for this lesson. See you in the next one.